What's up, everybody? My name is Shannon, and I am still waiting for my Seder. Sorry about last week. I just got crazy busy because school started for me, and band camp was all the time. But I did finish my books this week, so today we will be talking about The Selection by Kira Cass. Okay, so let me just start off by saying that I love the Percy Jackson series. I'm sure you all can tell because, obviously, the name of my blog, and I've read these books dozens of times. I absolutely love them. I've seen both the movies, even though I hate them. I have seen them, and I love the Percy Jackson fandom, and I love being part of it. But the selection, I can't even begin to describe how much I love these books. I mean, I found them I believe on my Goodreads recommendations, and they just sounded really interesting. I mean, I love princesses and all that stuff. It's just kind of like a guilty pleasure. So I was like, hey, those look great. I'm going to give them a shot. But then I saw that a lot of people really hate these books. Like, it would get a lot of 1-star ratings. So I was kind of discouraged, but I was on summer vacation and I didn't have any books. So I just went ahead and downloaded it to my Kindle. The next thing I knew, it was like midnight and I was sitting there and I'm just like, I have to know what happens. And so I downloaded the Elite, and then I downloaded the One, and then 3 days after this whole ordeal, which means that I read 3 books in 3 days, I was just sitting there and I'm like, I have all these feels, and I don't have a fandom to go with them. And oh my gosh, like, I kind of tried to get other people to read them and nobody would, but it kind of worked out, especially when The Heir came out, because I really personally connected with The Heir. But we're not talking about The Heir. We are talking about The Selection. So, with my little fangirling rant over, let's get started. Alright, so The Selection takes place in a dystopian society, but not in the normal way. It's set after World War IV, which is explained in the book. I can try and explain it. It's kind of like China occupied the US, and then the US rebelled, and that was like 2 world wars, and now we're after all that, and what used to be the US is now the Kingdom of Ilia. And all of like the people, like, they're all divided into provinces, kind of like The Rhythmatist, if you've ever read that. I only say that because that was actually like the US, and the provinces were like named after US states, so it's kind of like that. And all the people are divided into castes, just like in China. So we have the ones, which are the royalty, the twos, which are like military and other important people, threes are scholars, fours are shop and factory owners, fives are the musicians, the artists, the dancers, all that fun stuff. The sixes are maids, seven is manual labor, and eights are basically the untouchables, or if you've read Divergent, like the factionless, they're kind of, you get an 8 status if like something bad happens, or like you were born out of wedlock and stuff like that. So basically, the whole, like, the selection is a type of bachelor competition for the prince to find a wife. So all the girls that are of the right age get to put their name in if they want to, and 35 girls, because there are 35 provinces, are selected to go compete for his hand and the crown. So, of course, the main character does put her name in and she gets selected. Now, the main character is America Singer, and she is a 5. Like, she's a musician and, of course, a singer. Probably why that's her last name. But she didn't enter the selection because she wanted to. She entered the selection because her mom wanted her to, and her then boyfriend tried to make her. Because if you're in the selection, you do get compensated, and obviously you live in the palace, so your life's a little bit better. And when you're a 5, I mean, your life's not that great. you don't get all that much money. And I mean, her then boyfriend, Aspen, who I don't like, is a 6, and she wants to be with him, but she'd then be a 6, and he doesn't want her to throw her life away, and blah, blah, blah. They break up, she's upset, she gets selected, and goes to live in the palace. To me, best thing to ever happen to her, because I hate Aspen. Go on, if you're team Aspen, I'll tell you now, you're wrong, because he's no good. We're done talking about that. So, she goes to the palace to compete in selection. On the first night, she does informally meet Prince Maxen, and she kind of yells at him and says that he's stuck up and stuff, and he doesn't send her home, and I think it's because it was that moment when he realized that he was in love with this girl, because he says it at the end of the book, that it's always been her and it will always be her, but it takes a little while for her to realize this because she's still hung up on Aspen, which I feel like that's one of the problems that a lot of people have with this book, is that it is slow going because of the Aspen thing. Like, I feel like the author kind of drew that out too far, but regardless, she just kind of wants to be friends with Maxen, but they kind of start to fall in love, and when she starts to think that she has it figured out and that she probably has feelings for Maxen, what happens? Aspen is in the palace. He gets drafted into the military, and they put him on the royal guard, and now he's in the palace, and Maxen was like, hey, you guys are from the same province, so you can be her personal guard, and it just, oh my god, like, when I read the books before, and even when I read them now, it just made me cringe when they run into him, because her and Maxen were being all cute and laughing, and we're gonna go on a date, and I'm just like, oh, you're so perfect, and then she sees him, and my world just comes to this crumbling halt, and I was like, wait a minute, what's happening? So basically that kind of throws a wrench into the system, and the book leaves off pretty much with her deciding that she's not going to choose Maxen or Aspen. She's going to do what she thinks is right for her, which towards the end of the selection, it's kind of, I remember thinking the first time I read it that she was going to kind of try and lean towards Maxen more because Aspen hurt her so badly. And if her and Aspen were caught in the palace together, I mean, that's treason. They could be put to death. So I remember thinking, well, you are stupid. You should just go with Maxen because he loves you and he's perfect. But obviously, there are 2 more books. I'm not going to talk about those other 2 books because we are talking about the selection. So overall, as I'm sure you can tell, I enjoyed this book just as much the second time as I did the first time. It was like going back and like talking to an old friend. Anytime like my schoolwork was just doing whatever, or, you know, I was just not feeling my other books, because I was also reading 2 other books at the same time, I would just go read the selection because it is such a fast read. That's the thing about Kiera Cass. You can just eat her books like candy. They are so, like, fast, and you just can't get enough of them, and I think that is something really good for her, because this book does have its problems. I do acknowledge that it does have these problems, because America is rather annoying. She does spend too much time hung up on Aspen, more so in the second book, which we'll talk about when I review the Elite. But in this book, she is a little too hung up on him, and that part at the end, I feel like, was just a ploy to make the books longer. I don't think there's anything else that she could have done, so it's okay, but it just made me so mad because I'm so heavy on Team Maxen. I know there are probably Team Aspen fans out there, but you are wrong. You should not be Team Aspen. I will I was about to say I won't judge you if you're Team Aspen, but I will. I'm sorry. But anyway, if you haven't read these books because people give them bad reviews, or because people don't like them, or because you're afraid that they're too whiny or too whatever for you, go ahead and give them a shot. They are they are kind of romance books, but they're very light-hearted. Like, because a lot of books I read just kind of get depressing, and these never really do that. So they're a really fun read, and like I said, you can read them really fast. Like, I read, like, all 3 books in 3 days. So if you've got a long weekend, Memorial Day weekend is coming up, so you could just knock them all out. I totally recommend it. But if any of you guys have read these books, go ahead and let me know down in the comments. I have also just finished The Leviathan by Scott Westerfield, so I will have the spoiler review for that up next. I'm still reading Queen of the Tearling. It's a little slow go for me because it's kind of heavy. It's very Game of Thrones-esque, and it's just taking a while for me to wrap my head around the world. But once I get a little farther into it, I'm sure it'll pick up. I've just downloaded the audiobook for Daughter of Smoke and Bone. I don't know much about it, but Goodreads keeps recommending it to me, so hopefully it'll be good. And I'm also going to be reading The Elite on my Kindle whenever I get a chance. I really don't know what's gotten into me. I'm going to be reading 3 books at one time, and going to class, and going to color guard, but I will get it all done. I love reading, so I'm sure it'll happen. I'm going to try and stay a little bit more on top of things because I hate leaving you guys without a review. So hopefully I will get them out a little bit faster, and I will see you guys next time.